Aloha and welcome to the Embodied Healing Self podcast with your host, Jen Mons. Each week, join me for soul-inspired, conscious conversations around embodied healing and awakening to your soul's purpose. Thank you for listening in. Aloha and welcome back to this week's episode of the Embodied Healing Self. So it is my honor and pleasure to share with you this week my guest, Ragda Deeb. She is one of my soul sisters. We sit in the medicine wheel together and howl at the moon together and host goddess retreats and just have a really good time together. She is a yoga teacher and a licensed master of physical therapy, certified empowerment coach, master Reiki practitioner, and spiritual alignment coach. Her physical therapy background bridges science with breath, meditation, and yoga, and always with a spiritual flair. She had a double major in psychology and human development from Vanderbilt University, and then she got her master's degree in physical therapy. She's an incredible mother to 4 boys, 3 of them which are teenagers right now, 1 in college. And her rule of thumb for parenting is to parent from within and use the body and heart versus the head and the mind. Her intense focus on personal growth and spiritual development gives her an edge on coaching others to discover and dismantle deeper blocks to freedom. Her love for cultivating inner peace and stillness is contagious as she creates sacred space for her intuitive and energetic healing. Her focus is on spiritual alignment. She's the creator of the 6-month intensive program called the 5 Pillars of Spiritual Alignment, 5 POSA. She created it to be the turning point in your life, and once you've completed the immersion, you'll never be quite the same. She often says that she lives and breathes spirit. She has the gift of truth-seeing and truth-telling, and her work is for the serious spiritual seeker. She's an energy healer and has completed Reiki level 1, 2, and 3, a master Reiki practitioner, and a meditation teacher. She intuitively built a 12-foot diameter medicine wheel in the woodlands in her backyard when COVID hit, and I was a part of that opening ceremony. And she facilitates a wide range of events and women's circles for her community through drumming, chanting, meditation, yoga, and more, which I get to participate in because she lives here locally. In addition, she facilitates workshops and retreats that help women tune into their innate divine feminine nature, and has an intense personal Kundalini yoga and meditation practice, which I happen to know she is devoted to 2 hours a day. Her spare time is spent walking in Guana State Park, a state park near her, or on the beach, reading spiritual books, drinking tea with friends, and diving into deep healing work for herself and the occasional binge watching on Netflix. Her life mission is to stand for the healing of Mother Earth and all forms of her. She helps others to discover, cultivate, and strengthen their inner sanctuary within. So it is with deepest gratitude and honor to share one of my sacred soul sisters with you this week. Thank you for joining in. I can't wait to dive in with her.
Mother, I hear you in the river song. Eternal waters flowing on and on. Mother, I hear you in the river song. Eternal waters flowing on and on. Hey Ananda, hey Ananda, hey Ananda, ho, ah, ho. Hey Ananda, hey Ananda, hey, ah, ho. Hey Ananda, hey Ananda, hey Ananda, ho, ah, ho. Hey Ananda, hey Ananda, hey, ah, ho.
Aloha, friends and family. Welcome back to this week's episode of The Embodied Healing Self. So, it is my deepest honor to share with you today one of my sweet and dear soul sisters, Ragda Deeb. And we just connected before recording as I received a beautiful song that she sang to me. And it just felt so good. I am so excited to share her with you today. She is an intuitive coach. She is a mother of four. She is a healer, a yoga teacher, and a spiritual alignment coach. And spiritual alignment is something that I know this community is ready to dive into and allow yourself to just receive the wisdom and the knowledge that comes through my dear friend today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jen. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. So for those of you listening on the podcast, Ragda is outside. If you're not watching the YouTube video, I invite you to watch the YouTube video. You may hear the birds, you may hear, we have a little critter, raccoon, that keeps visiting. So you might hear all kinds of nature sounds while we are speaking today. And behind her is a medicine wheel that I have been a part of. For those of you watching through YouTube, Ragda is that friend who we howl at the full moon together. She hosts women's circles for full moon and drum circles and medicine wheels, and we've done some sweat lodges. And so really, truly, she is the friend for me that really embodies the wisdom and the teachings of what spiritual alignment is. And so I'm happy to share this with the audience today for those of you that are in a place in your life that are seeking or curious about what alignment might be, what spiritual growth might be, what the two of them together, spiritual alignment, might be. And she's got some tools to share with us, some techniques, a program that she created, which I will invite her to share. And yeah, I'm just super grateful to have your wisdom and your grace on the show with us.
Thank you. Thank you. I am really here. Yeah. And for us to just talk. Allow
just
for
let
whatever
it
wants to come up. Yeah.
let it flow.
Yeah.
So I'd love to invite you just to share, how when you look back at your life and you really drop into this knowing of like, this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to lead people to their own path of spiritual alignment. When you look back at your life as a whole, where did you notice that that was already showing up throughout your life?
I would say most prominently in my marriage, honestly. That was the place, or I guess like the avenue through which I started to realize when I was in and out of alignment. And yeah, it was through that relationship that I got to get really clear about when I felt I was in expansion, aka alignment, versus feeling like I needed to contract or make myself a little bit smaller out of alignment. And I've been on this a very, very, you used the word dedicated before we started recording.
Devoted.
Yeah. Another girlfriend used the word dedicated 2 days ago. And then I brought in devoted too. And then you said it again before we started recording. But I've been on a really devoted and dedicated spiritual journey for probably 15 years now, where, and most prominently over the last, I would say 7 years ish, where I've just been getting very, very keen on what it means for me to be aligned with that deepest part of who I am, aligned with spirit. Yeah.
So 15 years ago, like what was, because you're no longer in that marriage.
Right.
And so you said that 15 years ago you started this spiritual path. Like what was happening in your life? Were you uncomfortable? Did you feel unhappy? Like what was the thing that really invited you to start shifting something?
Now that you use those words, it really started for me pre-marriage. So we're talking 25 years ago. Through and then yeah, so the I guess like to go back to the original birth point, like birthplace, because for many years I actually considered myself an atheist
Hmm.
and had this very kind of like standoffish, like, God, I don't like that word, but God is a crutch and that's only for people who like need assistance in their life. I went through like this phase of um non-believing. Um and my parents got divorced when I was a freshman in college, and I started to experience anxiety. And I never had experienced anxiety before in my life. And sometimes it would be very crippling. And it started right around the time of my parents' divorce. And it just kind of I carried it with me into pre-marriage and even more after I got married. But I think it was after I got married, there were times like we would go out, right? My ex-husband and I would go out, and I would be, for example, just in a social setting, like at a party. And I would get so nervous,
Hmm.
like pretty, I don't know if it's severe, but pretty bad social anxiety, to the point where my palms would start sweating, my heart would start racing, my thoughts would become discombobulated. I wouldn't be able to think clearly. And I would just kind of like just be way, way, way out of alignment, right? At that time, I didn't even know those terms, but, and then I would go home, try to go to bed, and my mind would just race. Just, I should have said that, or I didn't say that, or I wonder if that came across the wrong way or the right way, or whatever. And I would drive myself crazy. And I remember way back then, that was probably 20 to 25 years ago, going to a hypnotherapist. And I also dove into past lives as well at that time to try to unravel, what is this anxiety? Like, what is this coming from? Something around the throat, something around my expression, my ability to speak. And so that was like the original transition from, wait a second, there's something bigger than me here at play. And that's when I dove into hypnotherapy, also mediums, talking with mediums, and past lives, and discovered a lot through that. And that's what really initiated the beginnings of my journey. Did that answer your question?
It did, yeah, and thank you for sharing that, because I know that there's a lot of people on here listening that can relate to the anxiety and the voice in their head, and am I good enough? Did I say the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Was it my fault? What could I have done differently? Like, there's the rabbit hole that we put ourselves into. And even when we're aware of it, how easily we can be pulled back into it. It's like a little saboteur, a little like thing, it's like this, I don't even, but it happens. It happens to even people who are committed and devoted on this journey. And that's where the devotion comes in, is it requires the devotion and intention daily to pull yourself out of it. I can't remember, at some point in time, I remember hearing that it takes like 3 positive acts to overcome like 1 negative act, like energetically. So, like, I think of that when it comes to spiritual alignment, like the intention and devotion that it requires to actually walk and be in this, on this path, or to be this, is kind of like a 3 to 1, like we're going to get pulled out. And that's why the intention in a daily practice is so important. And what you shared is that what you noticed for you, what I heard you say, is that there was just kind of like constant anxiety in the voice in your head, and kind of that unsettlingness. And a lot of what I talk about on this show, and I've talked about in previous episodes, is that whatever our internal belief system is, will be reflected back to us through relationships. So then we look at the marriage or our relationship with our kids or food or anything, whatever that relationship is reflecting back to us what's happening right in here. And that's where the alignment here first is a really nice starting point, because then we're not like, being swayed so much, or we don't believe that we are what we are experiencing all the time. Like our perception starts to change. So this we started out by sharing that it was happening through your marriage. Now the marriage was reflecting back some of the things that you're already noticing, the anxiety, the voices in your head, this sort of like this, inner experience that you're having. And you and I were together during that time. You were actually leading Warrior Goddess training. And I remember this, you were just sharing your journey and your presence of what was really happening for you. What I'm imagining that it must have been a hard decision to choose to, or was it like, how did that decision of like certainty that spiritual alignment for you meant this marriage no longer serves me, this is the path I'm going on, this is how I'm going to show up, how did that shift for you? Because I want to go into the shift and move forward, but take us to like that shift in that moment where you just altered course.
Mm. Yeah, it was the hardest decision of my life, actually. And it was a decision that I mulled over, not just for weeks or months, but years. And I went through a lot of psychotherapy. And I was, just generally speaking, my personality is I'm 110% in or none. It's like all or none for me. And I was all in. I'm going to try to figure out a way to make this work, this marriage. And the thing is, we always liked each other, right? And we had beautiful love. And I still love him. I think I will always love him. There will always be a place for him in my heart. A very tender spot. It's a different kind of love, of course, but yeah, I think there's just so much to the journey, but some major shifts happened in Teotihuacan, Mexico. Some very earth-shattering transitions and dismantling, and some major shifts happened in silent retreats with one of my spiritual teachers, several silent retreats. I had some big, big shifts. And as I became more in tune with the truth of who I am, with tapping into that space where the word expansion is coming to mind, like where you feel expanded, you feel liberated, you feel free, like you feel your own freedom. And the more and more I became attuned to that, the more I realized it was challenging for me to stay there in that relationship. But I was hellbound and determined, like, I'm going to make this work and I'm going to turn every stone over. And I did. I turned every single stone over. And then I remember getting to a point where after several years, I just got to a point where I was like, and this is all inner, right? This is my work. It's my journey. And actually didn't have anything to do with my ex-husband, but I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm not willing anymore to make myself small, like to not be me. basically. Like, so, I have to be me. Yeah. So I do remember a time where that was it was like a turning point
Yeah.
for me in that relationship. Yeah.
Well, I love that you shared, you know, what's coming up for me is like, I'm just feeling into like we can love somebody, we can love people, friends, partners, and it doesn't mean that it's totally in alignment with our path. Like it doesn't, so that's kind of like the all in or nothing kind of shadow, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I can relate to that, but when we love fiercely and we want to be all in and committed and devoted, but the true commitment and devotion is to our soul alignment, not to all the external things. And that's a hard thing as I'm saying it, like it feels like a very uncomfortable, hard thing to swallow because then all of a sudden there's all these voices in the head like, it's ego, you're selfish, you're da, 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 da. But so I want to speak to how did you overcome that, because I know that there are people listening who they're in a relationship right now. It's either with work, with a spouse, with money, with food, with the pandemic. I mean, everything is a relationship, a co-creation, and it's the perception is that it's creating suffering for them right now. And so what we do is we put like our peace, our joy, our alignment in everything outside of us, everything externally, right? And because there's these voices in the head that say that if we don't, then we're making it all about us. Like, how do you discern what is healthily serving my alignment and what is being selfish?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And honestly, it's practice and it's trial and error. And you're never perfect at something when you first start. When you're learning to ride a bike, you fall many times before you're a pro at riding the bike, right? And I'm not saying I'm a pro at spiritual alignment, but I definitely have practiced it a lot. And it is a practice and it takes an unbelievable amount of courage coupled with trust. So,
Courage and trust.
an unbelievable, it takes a brave, brave heart and a massive amount of surrender. Courage and bravery are close, and trust and surrender are close, right? So, and then there are so many tools that we can use and exercises that we can do and ways to open our hearts, ways to open our throats and our verbal expression and speaking our truth. And
Well, let's talk about that, because this is really what you've created are the pillars of spiritual alignment. So you've created this offering to welcome, invite people into what that could look like. So tell me a little bit about what inspired you to create this, because it felt aligned for you to create this, and tell us a little bit about what those pillars are.
yeah, so you've heard me say before that I live and breathe spirit, and that's just like who I am and what I'm about and how I live and how I operate. And spirit, I feel like when I speak or take action or make a decision, top of mind for me is almost always spirit. Like, what is my higher self or inner being or the flow from deep within? Where's that wanting to go?
And
And
so
so,
how do you check for the, I'm just for people listening, they may not even like, what does that mean? Like, how does that show up for you? Are you in meditation? Are you listening? Are you checking in with your body? Like, when you say you're checking in with higher self, what does that look like for you?
yeah, it's all of the above and more. all of the above and more. And so the program has a lot of content in it. And we go through the aspects of the physical body, that pillar. There's 5 pillars of spiritual alignment. And as you know, that pillar 1 is called Soma, wisdom. And so in that pillar, we get really clear on what it feels like to be in and out of alignment. And I was sharing with you the other day, I created a chart, and I counted them as you and I were talking the other day. There are 15 words, actually 30 total, but 2 columns, right? And one that's how one could, like the words one could use when they feel like they're in alignment, and the words one could use when they feel like they're out of alignment. And some examples, if I can think of them off the top of my head, like contraction would be out, expansion would be in, leaning in would be in alignment, leaning out would be out of alignment.
Busy, is that out of alignment?
Yeah, well, I think that depends.
Yeah.
When you're busy, do you feel like you're expanding, or do you feel like you're contracting?
Yeah, I know for me it's a contraction, it's a distraction.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's little things like that, that you can learn, and questions that you can ask yourself.
So what would some of those questions be? What are some of the questions that you ask yourself as you're checking in with your body?
Yeah. One question that I love is simply, this isn't really in and out of alignment, but you said, what questions do you ask yourself? This is what's popping in, is asking repeatedly, like, what do I want? What do I want in this moment? When you ask yourself, what do I want? Then all the story about the stuff that you don't want, and what we tend to do is we fixate on, that's happening and I don't want that, and this is happening and I don't want that, and this is coming up and I don't want that, and then it's like, or this, I'm going to talk with this person and I don't want to talk about that, and it's like, wait, what do I want? And it just helps you get out of your head, and it helps you kind of drop into the body, and then just feel into that, like, what is it that I actually want in this moment right now? And that is often that's one thing that I use. Another thing that I will ask is, what does my higher self want? What does my spirit want in this moment? And oftentimes now I'm mostly aligned. Now what my spirit wants is usually what, the Ragda character, the identity, ego part of me. I'm usually aligned, not always, but asking what would that greater part of me, or the healthiest version of me, what does the healthiest version of me want to do in this moment? If you can, it's like not, and if you're keen on knowing your wounds or your defended patterns or survivor patterns, we all have these patterns we've created, right, as we've gone through our lives, and we all have wounding, right, that we associate with. So it's like, if you've done some of that work, then what the healthiest, you're like, wait a second, I think that's coming from a more wounded place, or that's coming from a more like defended self. That's a strategy.
So are these feeling different in the body? Is it checking in with the body and feeling, kind of getting out of the thoughts and going into the body and just noticing sensations in the body with like what I want and don't want? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, that would be Soma wisdom, pillar 1, is getting clear on first of all, realizing and acknowledging that the physical body is an innate source of wisdom. And that in and of itself, most people don't realize. It's like, wait,
now you're speaking my language.
Right. Because I know you know this and you teach this too. But it's like, most people don't even realize that there is an innate intelligence to the physical body, and the body, as we know, is always in the present moment.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation, because, and I'm so happy that you brought that up, because I'm so passionate about body wisdom as well. And one of the books, I've said it probably on 10 different podcasts, that I love was Dr. Peter Levine's Waking the Tiger. Really helped me to understand my own experience and what was happening around my near-death experience that I couldn't physically remember, and then being able to remember it in a different time. It was the most bizarre experience. But we hear people say, oh, mindset's everything. Have a healthy mindset, like create affirmations. And that's great, but it's not all of it. And then people will say, let go of the thoughts and drop into the heart. Okay, I can let go of the thoughts. Okay, I got that. I've been meditating for 5 years. I'm witnessing the thoughts. Now I'm in my heart because now I feel safe. Now I've opened my heart. Well, that's a whole nother thing, because opening your heart, are you leading from your wounded heart or your healthy heart, right? But then there's this other piece, and you and I are in the world of energy and the chakras. It's like dropping down even further into the body. So it's like, okay, witness the thoughts, allow the emotions, and drop into the wisdom of the body. And so what I'm hearing you say is that you have a practice of really dropping into noticing whether or not something feels in or out of alignment in your body. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And again, it's a practice, because most people aren't keen on this, and they've never even been taught this. They don't know this. And so when you start to listen, it's just so easy, and it doesn't fail you. If you have a negative reaction inside the body, or it feels like a pulling in or a contraction, or withdrawal, then typically that's not the right path for you. And so when I trust that, I don't want to say to a fault, but sometimes it feels that way, because I trust it in conversation. I trust it with my friends. I trust it, So, and to really live by that, again, it takes courage, and you have to trust. You have to practice it and trust it. And the only way to trust it is to practice it, because when you practice it and then it works, you're like, oh, okay, so now I kind of get what that feels like. And then you practice it again and it works. And again, and it works. And then you start to really build trust, not in yourself. You're building trust in yourself, in that bigger capital S self.
Yeah. So as I'm hearing you say that, there's two things that are coming up for me. And I'm just thinking about people who are listening who are like, oh yeah, I can trust my body, or maybe I don't, right? Like, so one, really establishing that relationship with your body is important, right? Because you have to have that relationship in order to even listen to it or to trust it. And the other thing that, as I'm hearing us talk, and I know in my experience and your experience as well, and I've talked about the core workshop retreats on this podcast multiple times. I had Britta on the show, which is a lot of the work that you and I have done, where we were given space to really dive into and heal a lot of our heart space. Is, for me, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are, but you have to be willing to be vulnerable with the heart first in order to drop into the body. I'm wondering how that, and I don't mean vulnerable from an unhealthy place. I don't mean a vulnerability as in like, I'm so open and I just need, this, but the willingness to to receive and allow emotions to flow through you. Because I know in my experience, I had no idea that my heart was even guarded. I didn't even know, because I felt like I was so sensitive already. There was no way. Went to this retreat, had no idea that I could feel the depth of all of these other emotions, because I felt like I was already experiencing them, but there was a whole nother depth to them.
Yeah.
And then in my experience, what actually happened was I felt unsafe in my body because the emotions were so much. And then I was allowed to reframe that. I chose to reframe that through feeling unsafe, and then having an experience where I remembered something that my body brought the memory back to, and realizing, oh, the body's speaking to me. It's not that so as long as I was resisting, like, it's like I opened it up, felt these emotions, and then I was resisting, it felt unsafe. But if I was kind of allowing, but dipping the toe in and not being attached, then I could come back and sort of check in with the body a little bit. I don't know if your experience was different, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. And the reason is because I feel like vulnerability around emotions is still a thing in our culture. So what is the healthy, like, how does that relate to dropping into the body? And what is sort of like, it's a delicate walk. Like, what does that look like for you when you're checking in and in your daily practice, and how did you navigate that?
Yeah. Okay. So there were a lot of questions there. So let's see if I can kind of, I think that for everybody, the process of unraveling and unwinding to get back to the truth of who they are is going to be completely different, right? So I don't think everybody would open the heart first and then drop into the body. I think some might open the body first and then be able to access the heart. So that's one thing. Another thing is you're very, I totally agree with what you were saying. Like you have to first establish a relationship with the body. And so each of the pillars have three sessions, 3 to 4. The fourth pillar has four sessions. And the first one for Soma Wisdom is discovering your relationship with your body. That's the very first step. It's like, wait, do I even have a relationship with my body? A lot of people are actually detached from their body, and they've had to do that in order to protect themselves for a whole myriad of reasons, right? And so it's this discovery of, first of all, like, what is my relationship with my body? And creating a relationship with your body and learning how to really love your body. So like, and again, this is like all just pillar one, but yeah, so that's crucial, right? Just to have an awareness around that, because we can't just all of a sudden drop into listening to the innate intelligence of the body if we don't even have a relationship with the physical body. So, and then now I'm not sure if there were other questions, but those were the two things I wanted to hit on.
Yeah, I want to move into what the second pillar is. And I want to just say that actually, what's interesting, what's coming up is, you mentioned that some people have become attached from their physical body, some of it because of trauma, some of it for many, many reasons. And, also, there's also this interesting other thing that's happening in like the spiritual community. And I went through this myself a couple of years ago when I was getting really into meditation. I would actually check out of my body, and it was avoiding being in the discomfort of the body because it was a lot easier just to be like, oh, I'm just like going to be in 20 minutes of just like whatever. And so I realized that that was unhealthy. So when I hear you say establishing a relationship with the body, I think it's important to just recognize that that can happen for so many different reasons. It can even happen with good intention, such as creating a spiritual practice, where right, and it can happen because of trauma. And I just wanted to bring awareness to that because I know we've got all types of listeners on here. So once we have a healthy relationship with the body, which is where it starts, it's why we're here, it's how our soul gets to be here. What comes after that?
Yeah. So, well, as we were saying, so for Soma Wisdom, then it's all about tuning into that innate intelligence, right? And then as part of pillar one, I incorporate ceremony too. And I do a shamanic womb healing ceremony, which is a beautiful opportunity for women to feel and experience being in ceremony, being in sacred space, and kind of like just helping guide them into that space where they can feel that place of truth, like capital T truth. They can experience and feel deep peace inside through ceremony, and it's a very healing ceremony too. So throughout the 6-month journey, there are ceremonies interspersed. But to move on to the second pillar, it's having emotions without them having you. And the essence of that is, first of all, being really clear on what emotions are, what they're not, what are the words for emotions, how do we express our emotions. So that's kind of one level. And then another level is to learn and experience and embody the fact that, yes, we have emotions, and they too can be incredible guides for us as well. Just like the physical body is one tool that we can use to bring us into alignment, so too are the emotions. So the emotions can bring us into alignment as well, and we can be attached to the emotions too. So once you get a feel for what the emotions are, what they're not, how to process them, how to express them, then you can reach a point where you can actually take a very healthy detachment from the emotions as well. And the element each, like the physical body is associated with the earth. Emotions are associated with water. This is according to the Toltec wisdom and philosophy of Teotihuacan, Mexico. And so the emotions flow through you like water. So there are practices that help you not get stuck, basically, in the emotional body, because that's what so many of us do. We get stuck in sadness. That's what depression is. We get stuck in anger. We get stuck in all kinds of, energetically, they say cancer is the manifestation of anger in the physical body. So it's like, it's learning how to let the emotions flow through and not let them get stuck in your being. And you can have and I love crying. It's kind of weird to say, but I love to cry. And I can cry, and I have many times had very intense emotional releases without even knowing what they were about.
Yeah, let's just normalize that. Let's just normalize that we are humans having an experience, and it feels really good, and it's very detoxifying for the body, and it's just a release. And we don't even have to have a reason.
Yeah. And letting out anger, same thing. It's not a bad thing. You can let out your anger in a very healthy way. You can let out your sadness in a very healthy way. And you can let it. It's not about not feeling or resisting or not allowing it to flow. On the contrary, I fully feel the emotion. I mean, if I am angry and I need to burn anger, girl, I will burn that anger. And if I feel sad and I need to cry, girl, I can cry, right? I will feel it all, every ounce of it, but I won't, it doesn't stick. It'll just go through, right? I can just let it go through. I can let it pass. I can experience it all without, not always, but without the story, without the drama, without the attachment to it all, right? So it's learning, that's similar to having emotions without them having you.
There's a couple things that are coming up. I know my check for myself is always witnessing my emotional body. And there's so many things coming through. One question is, can you give me an example of the way that we experience anger or sadness in a healthy way versus an unhealthy way, just for clarity? Can you just sort of draw that picture for us? What does that mean for you?
Yeah. So an example of expressing anger in an unhealthy way is, let's say I'm really frustrated one morning and I just am frustrated about something, and it's starting to fester, and I'm getting angry and getting my kids ready for school, and I'm making breakfast, and let's say my son is sitting there and I've served him eggs, and he's like, "Mommy, will you get me a cup of water?" And I say, "No, you get it yourself. You've got legs."
Yeah. So, but it started when you were feeling it and letting it fester, right? It's not the moment that you're having an outburst, but it's really addressing it as it's starting to bubble up. Would you say yes?
Yeah. Yeah. And you had asked for an example of unhealthy emotion outburst or anger outburst versus healthy. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
And so what would they help? What's a healthy way that you allow yourself to express anger or sadness? Because you say that you do this often. And I know there are people who are listening who are like, "Oh no, I don't get angry, or I don't let people see me cry. I've got this. I've got this. I'm good."
Yeah.
So what is that? And I know the space you hold is for people to express that, which is beautiful and super healing. Some people have to start on their own first. What is that? What does that look like? A healthy way? What would you say that is?
I would say just being ruthlessly honest with yourself and your emotional body. And again, just like you have to get to know your physical body, you have to get to know your emotional body as well. So being very honest and tender and loving with yourself and accepting what arises in the moment and not suppressing and pushing it down. I like to use the analogy of beach ball, and our emotions can be analogous to a beach ball in that when we don't have a healthy relationship with them, we shove that beach ball. Have I shared this with you before?
Yeah.
Yeah, we shove that beach ball down under the water, right? And it's like, no, like, I'm not going to get angry here. I don't want to cry in front of somebody. I don't want to do, like, no, I'm happy. I'm happy. My life is joyful or whatever, like we all have these tendencies, like, and we push it down and we push it down and we push it down. But that ball, it's hard to keep it under the surface. And you're just going to turn your head sideways one day and it's just going to pop up and it's going to splash you and everybody around you. And so I think it's just developing and cultivating a relationship with your emotional body and not suppressing the emotions and just realizing that it's a part of our human nature. We all have them. Mm-hmm. It's a part of being human. It's a part of the human experience. We're supposed to, that's one of the beautiful dimensions of being human, is our emotional body.
And there's so many different ways we can have an outlet. One of the ones that I love is through dance, running. Some people like to just run it off or shake it off. I know you and I have done some active dynamic meditations where we shake. I have done the pool noodle. I have done the pool noodle, taking that styrofoam noodle and just whacking the outside couch. I've given my children permission to scream in the pillow. And that was not something that I was given permission to do as a child. Like, no. It wasn't safe to ever express my emotions as a child. So I think that just even hearing and given that permission to know, and that came up a lot last year in 2020. There were a lot of emotions that were really coming out. And honestly, some of it in an unhealthy way through social media. Like, I think giving yourself permission to feel it before, and just being really aligned before coming out and sharing it. I mean, there was a lot of like emotional vomiting on social media that was happening that didn't feel good for me. But then some people would say, well, that's healthy. It's okay to be angry. And I think, well, yes, but there's a way to do it a little more tactfully. Like, it's not about getting everybody together who's angry and being angry together or blame. That brings me to my next question, is what I notice is a lot of time with our emotions, and I wanted to ask you to give me some examples of, like, we don't use the right words for emotions or feelings. We often use words that blame other people. So tell me a little bit about that, because this was a huge shift for me. It was like, oh, I can't feel betrayed. Oh, okay, because that means somebody betrayed me. So I had to dig deeper. So tell me a little bit about, and for the audience, when you said it's understanding your emotions, can you give us some insight a little bit more about what that actually means?
Yes, absolutely. But I want to, you said some things that I just want to touch on. You were describing how social media, you came across some instances where it became more of like an anger venting thing, that it just didn't feel good, right? And I just want to point out that that's an example of you being aware that that was out of alignment for you. It may have been in alignment for the person dishing it out.
Right. That's true.
But it was out of alignment for you. And so for you to honor that feeling and maybe silence that group or that person or whatever for a little while, right?
Yeah, like, which is what I did.
Good.
Well, then the deeper invitation is, why are you uncomfortable with their anger? There's so many layers you can go with that. Is it like you don't want to see it, you don't want to hear it, you don't want to tap into your own? Or it could be sadness, it could be anything, right? But I know that anger was one that came up a lot, particularly around Black Lives Matter last year, because of what was happening. So I think what we're saying for everybody who's listening is exactly what you said. Like, it might be out of alignment for you, and it might be in alignment for the other person, and this is really just the practice of discerning what's in alignment for you and doing it by not making other people wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. The wind is so strong. The wind agrees.
Yes.
Thank you, wind. So absolutely. And here's where the bravery and the courage and the trust comes into play, because something will happen. It won't resonate with you. It won't resonate with your being. And so you are going to either trust that and walk away, whatever that would look like. you silencing the group, or literally walking away from somebody, or whatever that would look like, right? Like some toxicity, right? That doesn't resonate. So you trust it and you walk away, or you just kind of shove it down a little bit and you stay, right? And it festers, and you shove it down a little bit like the beach ball, and you stay in that whatever's out of alignment for you. You can call it a toxic environment, you can call it 1,000 things, but like, and then eventually at some point it will erupt, you know, or it will manifest into something in the physical body, right?
Dis-ease. That's like the real foundation of that word. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then you had asked,
how do you discern between what is actually an emotion and what is not?
Yeah. And it's learning the vocabulary, right? And we both learned NVC, nonviolent communication, by Marshall Rosenberg. And I love to use his teachings for this specific topic. And you said that oftentimes we will feel like we're expressing emotions, but we're actually stating what we feel another person is thinking or doing or being, right? So like, a big one is, I feel misunderstood. That's a really big one that you hear a lot. And you're making an assumption that the other person doesn't understand you. It's not really a true feeling. I feel hurt. I feel sadness. I feel pain. I feel frustration. But I feel misunderstood is going to put the other person on guard, because their automatic is, well, I don't misunderstand you. I understand you, right? But there's a difference between I feel misunderstood and I feel hurt.
Right. It's much softer. Then I want to lean in and be like, tell me more about that. But when you say misunderstood, I feel like I'm being made wrong.
Right.
So I feel defensive. And I think that is just that right there is super powerful. And the NVC tools are wonderful. Gloria Wilcox Emotion Wheel is another one that it really comes down to like 6 basic primary emotions. And then there's, different types of emotions that stem from those. But just getting really clear in the way that we speak with people, like as you just said that, nobody wants to be in a conversation when they start from the beginning like they're already wrong. It's not easy to listen, but if you express that you feel hurt or sad, then I'm like, okay, I'm willing to listen. It's really, it's such a great tool. I love that.
Yeah.
So
and
after go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say that to me is kind of like the basics of the emotional body and understanding the emotional body, right?
Yeah, it's a really great tool. We'll put, for the listeners, we're going to put those links in the show notes. So body wisdom, soma wisdom, understanding your emotions, and then what comes next?
Befriending mind.
Oh yes.
So
I see you're kind of going up. Like I was talking about, like, the thoughts, the heart drop into the body. So you're starting with the foundation of the body. You're moving up into the heart chakra, befriending the mind. So tell me a little bit about what that's about.
Yeah, befriending the mind. So, oh gosh, this one can be like a 2-year journey in and of itself, right? Actually, each one could be, but befriending mind, to, I guess, kind of funnel it down. I teach about how there are different aspects to the mind, 2 different aspects. We have the thinking mind and the working or functional mind. And the thinking mind is the never ending, we call it mind chatter in yoga, the monkey mind. It's the incessant, ongoing story, meaning making machine that is restless and it never ends, right? That's the thinking mind. And that is where judgments stem, both judgments for yourself, judgments to others. It doesn't serve us. The thinking mind, it doesn't serve us. So there are so many tools to help just calm. Most people cannot silence the thinking mind. Like the vast majority of people, it's not about silencing it for most. For most, it's about turning the volume down That's also where self-referencing happens in this thinking mind. And there's actually different parts of the brain. The part of the brain, according to neuroscience, is the default mode network. When we are like ruminating about the past, fixated on something in the past, or we're projecting into the future, worrying and anxiety about the future, this default mode network will light up in the brain, right? And so there's that. And then we have the working mind, the functional mind, which is activated with a tool, for example, like mindfulness. So in this third pillar, one whole session is devoted to mindfulness. And each session is 90 minutes. So we're not able to like explore the depths of mindfulness, but they at least get an introduction to what it is. How do you do it? How do we incorporate it into our everyday lives? When you are being mindful, when you have activated the working mind, which is a different region of the brain called, oh gosh, it's leaving me now. Attention, the attention network. So the attention network will activate when you are being mindful, which means two things. You are aware of what is happening in the present moment, and two, without judgment. So that's the big part. Like most people can become aware of what's happening in the present moment. You know, I feel the wind, I see the blue sky, I taste toothpaste. This is in my present moment right now. I hear my bracelets jingling. But without judgment is the tough part, because it's the judgment that kind of pulls in that thinking mind, and the judgment that will be like, you know, the bracelets are too loud, or the sky is bright, or, you know, the wind is too chilly, or whatever. Like that's a judgment, right? So it's training the mind to really be keen on just what is, functioning on that level of just pure present moment awareness, without kicking in the story and the drama and the meaning and the self-referencing and identifying with it. So, and there's tons of practices, you know, meditation, chanting. You can be mindful doing anything, taking a shower, washing the dishes, you know. So that's the
in the moment, I'm curious, in the moment, I'm getting good at awareness, right? So I'm just thinking like, okay, I got awareness down. And then I notice there comes the second thought, which is the judgment. So in that moment, what is a practice that we could do?
I guess it just kind of depends on what the judgment is, because there's many different tools, right? Like what comes in, is it your constant Judge Judy? Or is it I have names for them. Is it your constant victim Victoria? You know, what is it that's coming in? Is it that, or is it anxiety and fear around the possibility of something happening in the future that you're constantly fretting over? You know, like there's different tools for different. So the question would be like, what's coming in? What's the judgment?
So staying in the awareness then, almost like, so there's the awareness, and then there's the judgment or idea about it, and then going back into awareness of what's that about, or is that
I was actually asking you the question, like what is the judgment? Like, so I can get a better idea of what tool to give you, because there's different tools. But let's say it's a self-judgment, right? Like, I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not smart enough, right? So you first have to identify that, because most of the time this goes on and we're not, it's such a part of our being and our makeup and our patterning and programming that we are not even aware of it. So the very first step is just to start to tune in. What are those, if we're talking about judgment, what are those voices in the head? What are the patterns that show up over and over and over for you? First of all, what are they? Second of all, can you catch them? So you have to be able to, in the moment, see them and catch them. And then if it is a judge, you know, hi, Judge Judy. I see you, I love you, and I let you go. That's the practice. I see you, I love you, and I let you go. So you're not like, it's not like we gotta like, you're not fighting it really. You're not fighting it. It's just a softness. You're even loving it. Like, love all the parts and pieces of you. They've served you. That's why you have, that's how you got to where you are, right? And if it's not serving your alignment, if that thought no longer serves your alignment, then you make a choice in that moment. You want to keep it or not? You want to keep Judge Judy constantly there on your shoulder? Or I see you. I love you. Thank you. Like, thank you for all you've done for me. And I let you go. I don't need you anymore. I love you and I'll let you go.
Yeah, it just reminds me of that whole saying, like, what you resist will persist. It's like, just lean into it, give it permission to have a presence, acknowledge it, release it. Don't make up a story about it. Don't make it mean something even, right? Like, just witnessing it.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got body, heart, befriending the mind. What comes after that?
The 4 secret chambers of connection.
Ooh.
The 4 secret chambers of connection. And that's 1 to self, to others, to nature, and to spirit, which is really kind of everything. So, yeah, I mean, without going into every single one of them, there's different.
Well, tell me a little bit about the nature one, because I feel like that's really, like, I think most people would say, okay, self, community, spirit, got it. But tell me a little bit about the role that Mother Nature has. And this is a big part of your relationship. This is very much what you embody. You're outside right now, you've got the medicine wheel. So tell me a little bit about what that has given you personally.
Yeah, so having a connection to Mother Nature and being able to honor her as a tool for your alignment is life-changing, because nature, it vibrates and hums at a different frequency. And oftentimes all we have to do is just step outside and take a breath. Like, because our body can tune into that frequency. Like, that's our natural state of being, is a state of contentment, a state of joy, a state of freedom, a state of non-judgment. Trees don't judge each other. They don't look at each other and go, well, that's an ugly scar or whatever, like, whatever. They don't, it's, nature can be such a beautiful teacher. And to watch the abundance of nature, there's just so much to learn from nature. And cultivating, part of that session is cultivating actual friendships with trees, like creating a tree friendship and a relationship. Like, start cultivating and strengthening the relationship that you have with nature, walking around barefoot, earthing, letting the soles of your feet connect to the dirt and the grass or the sand or the mountain or the river or the water, and having that hum start to infiltrate your being, right? Allowing for her to bring you up, right?
Yeah, as I'm hearing you share it, it just feels like such an energy of being held. Like, we think we can do all these things. We're so in our head about what we can do. And the truth is that we can't do any of it without her. Because she sustains life for us. Everything. Food, water, air, like, so we could just break it all the way down to that and just realize that that is truly where we're being held. And I love what you said, that it just takes a simple, just step outside and take a deep breath. Like, just like, find your way to cultivate a relationship with nature in what feels good for you. It's different for everybody. For some it's the ocean, for some it's the trees, for some it's the mountains, but just, really, it's such a simple, yet something that I feel is, some people really know they need it, but a lot of people have forgotten.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're so much in front of electronics and computers and phones and concrete jungles, and it's just a different world now. than it was hundreds of years ago. And I feel most humans are yearning to get back to the natural hum of things. Most humans are yearning. And we actually, I mean, that was one of the blessings of COVID. It pulled us all back from our programmed, got to get up, got to go to work, and then I come back home and then I did it. It's like it pulled us out of that. It broke all of that apart. And then people had to really kind of reevaluate their lives and just, wow, like what's important to me now? And people, yeah. So
you have a daily practice that you do. Would you be willing to share what that is with Mother Earth?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So every day I try to come barefoot unless it's like soaking wet or freezing, but I come barefoot. I have an offering that I give to the land. I made it. I call it the Goddess Blend, and it is organic tobacco, organic USDA certified organic rose petals and lavender flowers. And there's meaning behind each one. But the blend, and then I also have Florida water, which is flower water that was made by women in Mexico. One of the journeys that I did in Teotihuacan. So I have the flower water and I have my offering, and I come out and there's a ritual that I do, but it's basically, in a nutshell, I face the sun, so I'm connecting with the sun. I'm barefoot, so I'm connecting with the earth. Usually the wind comes and I'm connecting with the wind. And first I take the flower water and I bathe myself with it. You just pour a little bit in your hand and you clap 3 times and it kind of sprays your face, and it's like an energetic cleansing. And I just pull apart the little things that are stuck on my, energy field, and I give myself a little bath. And then I take my offering and I put it in the left hand. That's the hand of receiving, the feminine hand. And then I say, oh my gosh, why am I blinking? I hold it up to the sun. I'm blanking. Maybe I'm not supposed to say it out loud.
Okay, it might just be sacred, but you have a commitment. You have a daily commitment and devotion to nature.
Commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I energize the stuff, and then I go through the chakras with it, and I kneel on my left knee and I offer it to the earth. I give it to the earth.
Yeah.
And I also receive with open hands. I receive. So it's a whole process. I'm happy to share it with you.
Well, I love that you shared the receiving part, because I feel like that is what we can give ourselves permission.
Yes.
It's the way that we can give ourselves permission to connect with Mother Nature, because I feel what I witness in, the community of women that I serve and in my own life is like there's just this constant noise and distraction and busyness, and we're always doing. And a simple connection with nature is, I love that you shared you give an offering, but then you're also receiving, because Mother Earth is so abundant. She has so much to offer. Like, so much, like from joy in, my family is all a bunch of surfers. So there's like the joy and the peace and the food and the water and the just like, it's just such a beautiful way to just receive. And
yeah. The words came, so I'm happy to share them. But I did, like, the essence of this comes from a shamaness that I learned, that I worked with in Mexico, in Teotihuacan. So the offering's in your left hand and you hold it up to the sun and you're facing the sun. And I close my eyes and I connect first. I just connect through the feet. I just connect everything to spirit. And then you say, Spirit, I know you know what I need and what I want, and I know I will receive it. And then I go through the chakras and I feel the energy of each chakra, and I take the tobacco blend and I go through all the chakras. I always kiss, give it some love, third eye, and then I drop it all around. And then you put the hands out, and then you close your eyes and you receive. You receive all the blessings, all the goodness. And sometimes I'll lift my shirt up and let the sun go directly to the belly too, as I'm receiving. And then you take what you've received and you put it on the belly, and then you just kind of slide your hands and you give yourself a hug, and you just receive it into the body. Give yourself a hug, and then you give thanks, you give gratitude, and you kneel on your left knee, and you take the palms of your hands and you connect them there. Mine are connected now into the grass, and you just kind of bow your head, and it's like reverence to all of it. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I know that you have shared it with me before, and I just wanted to share with the listeners that you can create your own offering, you can create your own ceremony. And if this is something that you feel resonates with you, I just wanted to invite you to share that, it's as simple as having an offering and making it whatever aligns with you.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because I tweaked it. Like doing the chakras that's something that I added in there. Like I tweaked it a little bit. So you make it your own, you just make it your own, and whatever resonates with you, whatever opens your heart really and connects you when you feel connected to spirit and to the earth, like whatever that is for you. But it's really, really, really helpful to have a ritual where you do step out of the mind chatter into yourself, and you do it in nature, and to do it daily. Now, I don't do it every single day, but I try to do it every single day.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And so, body, emotions, befriending the mind, the four secret chambers of
Connection.
And then what is the fifth?
Always, ALL-ways, authentic presence. Always authentic presence. And so this is a really fun one. We explore some really fun exercises that I've created to open up the throat chakra, self-expression, speaking your truth, really fun stuff. I'm wondering if you want to do one. You have to be willing to just be really goofy.
Oh, I'm very intrigued and interested in we are such in a time of this voice collectively really wanting to be heard, and it's being heard in so many different ways. And for so long, and there's been a suppression of that, a lot of it in women. And so that's the colors behind me. Is the orange is the sacral, the feminine, and then the turquoise is the throat chakra. So, and this is also my growth edge. It's part of the reason I have the podcast, because it's a super major growth edge for me. Like some people can just speak totally comfortably. For me, because of a core wound that I have around childhood, being shut down, speaking my truth, it always comes up as this fear of rejection. So and I see it happens a lot. So it happens with entrepreneurship, social media. Do I want to be seen? Do I not want to be seen? Do I come out of the shell? Do I just stay in my happy life, right? So tell me, let's do one of these voice exercises. I'm down for it.
Yeah, okay. So you're down for being a little goofy.
Do I have to stand up because I'm in because I'm in a
No, you don't.
I'm in a small little space right now.
Yeah. So part of, awakening or opening or clearing, getting greater clarity around the throat chakra is just a lot of people aren't comfortable with their voice and the range of their voice, or just their voice period, or they're not used to like breaking patterns too. So part of this is just like breaking patterns, and part of it is just being very free with your voice. Okay. And this is just one part. This is just one little section of one session of the whole pillar of authentic presence. Okay. So it's all we're going to do.
Okay.
Do you have a timer or no?
No.
Okay. That's okay. We'll just do it. I was going to say we'll time it for 1 minute, but we'll just do it for about a minute. And we're going to get very, very animated and very, very free spirited, and we're just going to create our own language and act like we're having a conversation in a completely different language. We're just going to make it up. Okay.
Okay, so full permission for those listening to mute if you don't want to be entertained by some, who knows what's going to come out of us for the next minute. All right.
Okay, ready?
So we're having a conversation in like weird voices?
Yeah, no, not weird. Just go with it. I'll start and then you'll just pick up on it. Okay.
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 Yeah, 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 yeah. Chocolate. Oh my God.
Okay, that's
You've gotta like watch the YouTube video because you have done this so many times that like you know what you're saying, and I'm just
I have no idea what I'm saying.
so, you know what the funny thing is that my kids do this. My
I
youngest
love
one
it.
has just done this. Like just like it's like you're speaking another language and you're just like being all silly. Or have you ever like made yourself laugh? Like you just start like forcing a laugh out and then you can't stop. Yeah, it's that release.
Yes, it's very freeing, and it's like it just gets you out of your comfort zone. A lot of this journey gets you out of your comfort zone. So, yeah.
Hallelujah. We could all use a little more freedom around that. Like,
Yeah.
that's just like becoming a grown up doesn't have to be so boring.
No, it's got to be fun. It's got to be fun. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. Like, it's all about fun. But that's authentic presence, right? It's like, it's breaking all the patterns, breaking all the norms. It's like owning who you are, stepping into your truth, using your voice. And I define authenticity. I think I said this, we were talking the other day, but I define authenticity as when the inner thoughts and feelings are mirrored by the outer words and actions. So whatever is happening on the inside is actually what's showing up on the outside. And that is not true for for a lot of people, you know,
especially with social media.
Yeah. And it's very hard. And again, it's very edgy and it takes a lot of courage, and you have to trust yourself. You have to trust that you're going to be okay. Like, I'm safe, and I'm going to be okay if I don't do this or if I do that, you know?
Yeah. So I think a lot of us might show up in the way that we want to, and that might be escaping what it is that is present. And it might be a way of like avoiding what is uncomfortable and present, right? So it's just, I'm just noticing it's interesting because there's almost like that shadow of positivity, right?
There can be a shadow.
It's like that could be, that could show up, and you know, just finding that healthy balance and just normalizing all the experiences, I think, without even naming them or judging them, but just normalizing.
Yeah, like we all know the people, right? That they show up, and like always there's that, you know, it's like always happy and always like this, you know, like, you know, the people.
Well, I don't know. My husband might be one of those people, and I asked him the other day, like, how are you, like, always? So how do you always see the miracle in everything? And I'm like, life is hard and it sucks sometimes, and people suck. He's like, yeah, they do. Yes, it does. He's like, and it's hard. I just practice it, and I'm just like, man, you know. And it, like, so most people who know him wouldn't know that. Because but he really truly does choose joy.
Yes.
But he acknowledges that it's difficult. It's a choice. And that's what he just said, is like, it's a choice. It's a choice. It's a choice. Yes. Acknowledge what doesn't feel good. And then, hey, guess what? You got another breath. Choose from there, right? It's a new moment.
And the thing is, you know, when you're in spiritual alignment, generally you're at ease, you're in flow. It's like the things just come to you naturally, things that you're wanting or needing. And that generally feels positive and good, right? So you're generally upbeat and happy. Like I do consider myself to be a content person. Not all the time. Like if I'm sad, I'm sad. But
Yeah.
but yeah, being in alignment doesn't always mean you're joyful, content, and happy.
Ooh, that's okay. We're gonna quote that. Because I think that when people are listening, they're thinking, okay, if I'm in alignment, everything's gonna be great. Yeah.
Sometimes in order to be in alignment, sometimes you have to scream and
Yeah.
yell.
Make the difficult choice.
Yeah. To be in alignment, sometimes you have to release emotion and just cry. If that's your truth. And that's authenticity too. It's like showing up as you are, true to yourself. Capital S self, true to your spirit. Showing up as you are, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when you're going to piss somebody off. Even when you might lose a friend. Like nothing is more important than your alignment, than your service to spirit. Like, and when you are in service to spirit, all that you need will come.
Yeah.
And this is the new paradigm. This is the new, everybody talks about the dismantling of the old paradigm, and we're in the new world, and we're shifting from third to fifth dimension and all that talk. But it's like, it's living in your authenticity moment by moment. It's a heart-centered, heart-opened way of being, feeling, living, operating 24/7. It's not just something you go to a retreat, you experience, you go back home, you have your life. Like, no, like the retreat becomes the life. Right. The meditation becomes your life. The way you feel when you dance becomes your life. The way you feel when you surf becomes your life, right?
Yeah, I think that is the perfect place to just come full circle and just end with that little nugget of wisdom. It's becoming that alignment. It's not something you do. It's not we the name of this show isn't doing spiritual alignment.
Yeah.
The pillars of spiritual alignment are living it, being it, and practicing it in a devoted way. Just the willingness to practice and having compassion for the idea that the practice might change and it might look different from day to day, or depending what's happening in your life, or maybe something needs to shift a little bit because maybe you're working on something else. But allowing yourself the grace to just flow with really what those pillars are is they're what I'm noticing is that those are the inner guidance system. So the outside world can change, even the things that we do to get in alignment can change, but it's that all is reflecting back what's that inner guidance system. Like where is that for me?
Right. It's like, yeah, it's cultivating the sanctuary within. You've heard me say that many times before, but it's all about that. It's discovering, cultivating, and strengthening the sanctuary within, deep within. And everything goes back to that, it all goes back to that. And when you stay true to that, the magic happens. Yeah.
Magic happens. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. It's been my honor to share you, and I'm going to drop the link somewhere to find you, your website, your Instagram. I know that you also have a nice little empowerment altar ebook that you share, encouraging people to set up an altar, and you have information about your 5 pillars of spiritual alignment on your website. So
not yet. Just so you know, not yet. So if anybody's interested in any of that, the ebook, the 5 pillars, I'm in the process right now of transitioning from WordPress to Squarespace.
Yeah.
So it's still the old website right now, but on the old website, ragdadeeb.com, you can email me. So if anybody is interested in anything at all, just shoot me an email through the contact page on the current website.
Awesome. All right, my dear, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your grace and your wisdom. Such an honor.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jen. Thank you so much. Love you.
My pleasure. Love you too.
I have a special offering I'd like to share with you. For the weekend of Mother's Day, Saturday, May 8th. So calling on all divine feminine goddesses who are looking to dive deeper into the feminine archetypes. So together from 9 to 2 Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, May 8th, we are going to explore, remember, and reveal the huntress, the mother, the wise woman, and the goddess. We're going to do this through journaling, expression, dance, movement, connection, and sharing. And then we have a special surprise guest who's going to take us through a beautiful, special movement and ceremony. So you're invited to join us. The link is going to be in the show notes. And I hope to see you there. We've got about 10 spots left remaining. So if you're interested, grab your ticket. The early bird price ends on May 1st. If you have any questions, you can send me a message or check out the link in the show notes. Hope to see you there. Hello, friends, and thank you so much for joining me today and being a part of this community. I know there are many other podcasts that you could be tuning into, and I am deeply honored that you chose to listen in and be present with me today. I love and cherish and appreciate you, and I want to invite you to join our tribe and Facebook group under jenmons.com/connect. I would also love to gift you your guide to discovering and overcoming the self-limiting beliefs standing in the way of you living in optimal health, more energy, fulfillment, and self-confidence to create an embodied, healthy, whole you. You can find this at jenmons.com/tribe. I also have one small request to help spread the love. In order for this podcast to show up in the feed of social media platforms of other like-minded people, we need reviews. So please head on over to jenmons.com/podcast to leave a review. You will also find other inspiring episodes on that page. So I personally read these reviews weekly and would love to give you a shout out and share your kind words with our listeners. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as Jen Mons or The Holistic Coach with the W Holistic and Jen Mons, JenMons.com. Thank you so much and have an amazing day. Aloha. The content of this podcast is to educate, inspire, and inform you of pathways to an embodied healing self. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice from your medical doctor, therapist, registered dietitian, or nutritionist for any questions you may have regarding your diagnosis or condition.